I said, my grandfather was a fisherman. I used to go fishing with him, and that's how I pretty much got into the fishing industry. And then from there, my love of the ocean grew, and I was mainly just lobsterman. That was my main passion at the time. I didn't really know any other fisheries, and then they came up with the wicked tuna on TV, and I really enjoyed watching it, and I wanted to know more about it. And I had a friend who had a bunch of poles, and he approached me because he saw the excitement every time I talked about it, and he asked me if I wanted to buy them. So I kind of hesitated, and I hemmed and hawed it for a little bit, and I decided that for the investment that he wanted, I'd spent more on stupider stuff, so I might as well try it out. So I bought the poles, and then I started fishing, and then I started learning, you know, the rules and regulations on it, and it's a pretty good fishery as far as sustainability, because, you know, you're fishing with one line, one hook, and, you know, you can't make the fish bite the hook, so you pretty much harvesting one fish at a time, and it has to be 73 inches or greater for a commercial harvester to take it. So anything below 73 gets set free. And so when you're fighting it and you get a good look at the fish, you have to determine whether you think it's legal or it's not legal. And that can be pretty difficult when the fish is swimming by at 100 miles an hour. So you kind of make a fly decision, and if you're not sure, then usually we'll bring the fish right aboard. And usually if it's a 73 or greater, we'll harvest it, and it will come onto the market and go to Japan for sushi grade, some other domestic markets around some restaurants and whatnot, seafood places. Also, they sell them the local fish as well. But the rules since the 1950s, tuna fishing, it was almost extinct to one point. They almost fished it out. I don't really know much about that. I just read, a few things, and they pretty much almost fished it out in the 50s. It almost collapsed. So they had so now there's rules and regulations on it, and they're pretty strict. It's a federal government fishery, so you have a set quota. The government gives you a quota, and so it's not just me fishing on it. Any license holder who has a general category, there's also harpoon. There's a bunch of different categories for the tuna fishery. But I myself have a general category, which is rod and reel. So, but I don't get off track of losing my thought here.
You can put a mask on while you're talking too.
Hot. Well, anyway, the rules and regulations. So they're set on a quota now. So you have a gross tonnage of what you're allowed for fish, and it's set by NOAA, which is a federal agency. That most fishermen know about. Anyways, they set the limit, and you have so all the license holders who have a tuna fishing license go out and fish, and every tuna fish you catch, you have to report to land. So you're supposed to report it within 24 hours of coming back to shore, so they can have real-time data of the quota and how quick they're using it up, and then they adjust it accordingly. So if we're using up too much quota too quickly, then they'll shut us down, and that's what happened through the July and August quarter. We shut down August 3rd, and we don't open back up until September 1st. And then since we used so much quota so quickly, now we're coming back on September 1st. They got restricted fishing days. So that means we're only allowed to fish a couple days, and then we'll have to take a day off, and then fish a couple days, and then take a day off to stretch the quota out longer. It's good in a way, but in other ways, you can't control Mother Nature. So if you have a day where it blows and it's on a no fish day, then great. But if you have a day that it blows and it's on a day that you're supposed to go fishing, you have to make that decision. Is it worth a fish? Is it worth your life? I mean, it's a fine line, so. And I'm trying to think if there's any other points I missed out, but. So there's recreational license too for tuna, which also counts on the quota, and that's anything 73 and small. So, like your recreational fishermen, if they wanna go after the tuna species, then they would get a recreational license, and that they're limited in one fish that's 73 or less. Well, that's actually 72 or less. So that's
Is that
recreational.
a day for recreational?
I think it's a day. I'm not 100% on the recreational aspect. For commercial, it's one a day right now. It has been up to 5 a day at the time, depending on the quota, what we're allowed. It started off at 3 a day this spring, and they've adjusted it to 1 a day now. So they'll have it at 1 a day now until it runs out throughout the quota. So we'll have a September, October quota, and then November, December is another section of the quota. So if we run over in September, October, then whatever we run over will be taken out of November, December's quota. And then they have a reserve set aside, so if they do go over, then they have some set aside so they don't deplete the quota.
Are they a migratory fish, or are they always in our waters here?
Well, they say they're migratory fish, and they are for the most part. But I've caught them in the middle of December before, so it's a tough call. But yes, they are migratory fish. They go south in the winter, and they go all over. They actually there's a few studies that the Japanese really have a lot of the studies from when they were ground lining and stuff, because they go after them too. Back in the 80s, maybe Glenn knows more about this because I'm a little hazy on it, but back in the day, I guess you used to be able to fish closer to the United States, so there was more ships from foreign territories that would come in and harvest these fish, and they have very well documents, of their fishing and where they've caught them and the migration of the fish. So they do migrate a long distance, and they actually when you sell a fish, the buyer takes the head, and they have a research facility. They actually look at the ear bones in the fish, and they can tell where it came from, what part of the ocean it was from, and where it was raised. And so it's pretty interesting as well.
Do the Japanese follow the quota also?
I don't think they do. No. Back in the 80s, I don't think anyone did. So, back then, the 50s, whatever.
And do you fish year round?
Yes, well, I fish until the quota's done, and then I'll go back to wild springs.
So how far out are you going?
It varies. I've been anywhere from 180 miles offshore to right out here on Mount Egypt.
Wow, I had no idea there were tuna out here.
I didn't either. It took me a few years to figure it out, but now I know. I'm not giving it up that easy.
So is that a day trip, or do you stay out for a couple of days?
Well, normally I stay out for a couple of days if that's what it takes to catch one. So usually the expenses, to steam 25, 30 miles offshore, the fuel's not cheap, and then you gotta bring ice and food, so you're pretty much committed. If you go out, you want to fish. I mean, I've come in empty before. It's not a good feeling.
What do you get for the average size tuna?
It varies. It depends on the quality of the meat, and the fat content. That's what they look for, the fat content in the fish. So the more fat content, the higher the price you get. And the leaner the fish, the less you do on the price. So
What's the range in cost?
An average $8-9 a pound, depending on the quality. I've had some that are $14-15. I've had some that are $1. So
And how many have you caught at one trip?
When I first started, you was allowed 5 a day, and I went to George's Bank and we had 5 fish in one day. So that's as many as I've caught in a day, and that doesn't happen very often. So that was I'll never forget that trip ever.
One of the pictures that I showed on here, let me see if I can get it back.
The 5 tails. Yeah, that trip there, me and my buddies there, we all went out to George's. That was the trip there. We had 5 fish in less than 24 hours. It took us longer to steam out there than it did to catch the fish.
The boat must have been pretty weighted down with 5 of those big fish.
Yeah, well, we would have stunk in the whale. We had ice, and then we had to bring extra fuel with us because it was such a long trip. So we had 4 or 5 extra barrels of fuel and a pretty significant amount of ice.
I'm just curious about catching a big fish like that by hook. I mean, I know it's possible, there's always tournaments, but I wonder, how do you catch a fish on a hook?
Well, you start, have you guys ever caught a mackerel or anything?
Yeah,
You start with those, you start with a bait fish,
yeah.
and then you put the bait fish on the hook. It's almost like, it's pretty much like bobber fishing. You put your bait on the hook, and then you set your weight, and then you put a balloon on for a bobber, and then you set it out, and hope something's hungry and looking for it. So,
But a 73-inch fish must weigh an awful lot.
and on average, they're anywhere from 300 to 400 pounds. And then if they go up in size, I mean, I had a 117-inch fish, and that dressed at 700 and something pounds with no head and tail. So that was well over 1,000 pounder.
And you're actually holding it in?
Well, I'm not holding the pole. We have pole holders. We put them in.
Look at the back of this picture, there's
Yeah.
pole holders there.
If I was 20 years younger, I might try to fight one without the pole holder. But we leave them in the pole holder, and we pretty much just crank and pull on the reel. And that fish right there that you just saw, that one took me 4.5 hours to even get him to the boat. Just tug of war. It's like the biggest game of tug of war you've ever played in your life.
So once he's ready to be taken out of the water, how do you hold 1,000 pounds up by yourself?
Well, typically you don't do it by yourself. You either have a crew, which you don't usually lift it up. I have a Tuna do it. I don't know. There might be a picture of it on one of the pictures, but there's a cutout on the back of my boat on hinges. You can swing it open, and then you can almost see it right there behind me. So that opens, and when you get a fish, once you get it close to the boat, you put a tail strap on it, and usually you harpoon it before you put a tail strap on, just in case the line breaks or whatever. You don't want to lose it. You work that hard to get it. The last thing you want to do is for it to swim away on you. So once you get it all done, you open the door and you pull them in, and then we have a hydraulic hauler on most of the lobster boats around. So I use that instead of pulling. I used to pull on everything. Now I don't anymore. I try to use the hydraulics to do it for me. So that's how I get them aboard. I used to bring them over the rail, and that was an act of Congress.
Yeah. There's a hauler in this picture.
Yeah. So that's the hauler. So we run a rope all the way from there, all the way back to the door, and then I'll pull them, and it will pull them through.
Still incredible. So have you noticed any decline in the population?
I actually haven't. I've noticed a lot smaller fish, so that means there's more juveniles on, so that means there's a healthy stock.
That's good, yeah. What do they eat?
Their favorite squid, but for the most part, they'll eat anything. They're pretty much pigs of the sea. They'll eat mackerel, herring, squid, whiting. I've even seen lumpfish. I mean, they're not real picky, but they are. I mean, yeah.
Any other questions for Mike?